breakfast now.
Joel-Skousen, World Affairs Brief, is our guest, and we're going to be going to your phone calls here. I got a bunch of other questions that I want to get Joel's expert take on, but I do before he leaves us, so remind me if I forget, Joel, sometime the next hour. Let's get back into your ideas of how to get contractors or government people to safely be able to blow the whistle. Because they can have them sign agreements or whatever. There's no Nuremberg defense of just following orders, as you know. But they're fully aware of the fact that they're under surveillance. And they've got watchers watching the watchers. And that's why they spend, what, 500, 600, 700 billion on budget for black ops a year, $1 trillion plus on defense. A lot of it is economic saboteurs, spying on other corporations, then giving it to the Chinese. This is the globalist model. Bring the American people under control. So we'll talk more about that. But Jason, Michael, Paul, Christopher, Kenneth, you've been holding patiently. We're going to start getting to your calls right now. Jason, Indiana, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
I think whatever religion or belief, we all need to pray every day for you and our country and the world, and even pray for our enemies, because by praying for our enemies, we like dump, it says in the Bible, like hot coals on our head. And I believe they believe in a spirit world, and I believe there's power in prayer, and I believe for every demon there's 2 angels, and I also believe that we shouldn't fear them because it keeps us kind of in a lower state. I believe we're all energy. And I also believe that people should go to town meetings and fight for clean water and rights to be able to have a yard sale or build a shed or whatever. And I believe that we should like contact store manufacturers and stuff and tell them to, you know, get good foods on the shelves. And
well, Jason, I appreciate your call. I want to get Joel's take on that, but you just raised a bunch of issues. They're trying to pass state laws. They have passed federal laws with multi-million-dollar fines for garage sales. That's AP. They are SWAT teaming people selling vegetables on the side of the road. They are doing everything they can to train us to be slaves and to train the police that it's normal for them to treat us like slaves. And I do agree with you that just getting out and being heard and saying no to what's happening is a large part of defeating this system. Joel?
Things about prayer, I think we do need the Lord's help. I am not one of those believers, however, that you can simply pray that the Lord will make evil controlled people good. He will not interfere with their free agency to choose. They have chosen the evil side. I pray most vociferously to try to get good people to wake up and to be able to see wolves in sheep's clothing. But I don't think we can simply pray for everything. We have to pray in an inspired manner. We have to listen to the will of the Lord about what's appropriate to pray for and be guided by that.
Joel, how do you deal with it psychologically or spiritually? Because one philosopher said when you stare into the abyss, be careful you don't become the abyss. Or someone else said, I forget who, that when you dance with the devil doesn't change, he changes you. Just studying this every day and learning about the enemy and learning about their mind, I've gotten to the point, I've always been disgusted by it, but now it just gets worse and worse. As I learn how they operate and what they think and get inside their heads and can see what they're seeing, think what they're thinking, it really, really gets to me. How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, I think you have to realize that you can't let it get to you. You can't let it bother you. It's we have to do what we can do, and I don't try, for example, to change people who I feel resistance from. I work with people who I sense that they feel that something's wrong.
Stay there. Let's come back in 1 minute. Stay there. We got to come back in 70 seconds, finish up that point, then we're going to continue with your phone calls. Stay with us. Okay, got another hour with Joel-Skousen and your phone calls. If you just joined us, I had asked Joel-Skousen of World Affairs Brief, researcher and analyst studying the globalist crime syndicate, how he deals with knowing all this information, because I try to not let it get to me, but it doesn't even weigh me down or wear me out. It more just disgusts me. It's kind of like I describe it as working, you know, around a bunch of rotten dead animals or something. It's just disgusting. I'm sick of it. And I'm sick of how outrageous it's gotten. And I know the globalists are trying to break our spirit, break our will, sell us on accepting anything and everything evil, making us capitulate, breaking our spirit, I guess is the word. But Joel, finish up your comment on that.
Well, you know, I fought the same battle for many, many years, and I finally got a handle on it. I used to be very, very depressed because not only was I discovering more and more evil and more collusion between government and you know, judges, everybody, there's a great deal of involvement. But it's interesting that as I realized at some point, you know, I still have a life to live. I've still got a family to attend to. There are important things to do. You can't get boresighted and everything. So I've learned to compartmentalize it, just like my father, who was a divorce attorney. He decided to leave it at the office. He did not bring it home. And you have to do that. But still, I don't walk around as a Pollyanna. I don't try to use positive thinking garbage to explain this stuff away. It's very real. It's very serious. But people need to realize, because there's a lot of people on the fringe. I mean, my wife, for example, knows what I know, but she doesn't feel as passionate as I do about it, and I have to respect that. Most of your listeners are dealing with a spouse or friends or other people who just don't innately feel as passionate as you and I may feel about this, and we have to give them space. We have to not be too pushy on people and give them time to absorb these things. Give them credible information. Wait till they sense that something's wrong. That, Alex, takes the frustration away. I've seen people literally destroy their marriages by going at this thing with a bludgeon, trying to hit people over the head and say, can't you see that this world is crumbling? I think we have to look at and take this as a test. We're all being tested in this world to see who's going to sense that something's wrong. And I try not to get in the way of people's blindness. If they're willfully blind, I'm going after the people who sense that something's wrong that I can influence.
Well, I agree with you on that issue. And plus, this is important, powerful info. If you try to push it on people, they automatically refuse. But if you just state, here's the facts, this is the way it is, and you know deep down that we're all in danger and society is unraveling by design so these globalists can build this nightmare system on its ashes. And 10 years ago, I would get 50-50 positive, 50% negative. Now it's got to be 90% positive. I mean, people are really starting to wake up. That's why the system is injecting co-opted people, greenhorns, and that's how I see Glenn Beck, is that one show I'll watch and it's all truth. The next show I watch, it's neocon lies, and he sells it like he really believes it a lot of the time. But I see people like Glenn Beck is basically a greenhorn that they're handling and using.
Well, my view, and I know quite a bit about Glenn, and in fact, his mentor in his conservative philosophy is my uncle, joel-skousen, who's a great mentor. But Glenn even saw things through rose-colored glasses. It took me until 2 years before he died, Alex, before I could convince him that, in fact, Bush was part of the problem and was not redeemable, and that the Republicans were part of the problem.
This is incredible. Stay there. I'd forgotten that Glenn Beck says what woke him up was your uncle's book, or books, and seminal writing. So let's talk about that when we come back, and then to the phone calls. I tell you, we should have been having Joel-Skousen on years ago before all this. Time flies. Stay with us. All right, let's go back to Joel-Skousen. I hate to get back into Glenn Beck here on the show, but clearly you can see the media building him up for a fall, making Glenn and Sarah-Palin the leaders of the Tea Party. And we know News Corps and Fox News is totally pro-New World Order. They've denied world government, made fun of it for decades. Now everything we talked about has come true. Everything Glenn-Skousen talked about has unfolded. Everything Joel-Skousen for 30-something years has talked about has happened. Everything I've been talking about for 15 years is now out in the open. And Glenn Beck says Glenn-Skousen, is his main political mentor. and I guess spiritual mentor. And, you know, we've got his nephew, author and researcher on, Joel-Skousen, right now. And meanwhile, he's saying, if you're a 9/11 truther, you're scum of the earth. The army needs to be used against you. Ron Paul's money bomb might want to blow things up. And so I've really seen him, go to the White House, get orders from Bush, come out and say there are no FEMA camps, no plans for camps. I see him going, well, the MIAC report's out there, but it's not that bad. And then I hear him on another show tell the truth. Here's an example. Here's his new book, The Overton Window. There's a talk show host who gets the MIAC report from Homeland Security whistleblowers. That was Alex Jones, on record. He knows that. This character, Mr. Bailey, about Alex Jones, the same person, stops a nuke being detonated in L.A. And the government is staging terror attacks. Then at the end of the book, Beck says, I don't believe government ever stages terror. This is fiction. But at the start of the book, he says it's faction, that is fiction that talks about facts. So what double game is Glenn-Beck pulling here? And you're saying you know quite a bit about him and a lot of inside baseball. And I know he has said that Skousen, your uncle, the author, is the person that woke him up. And I know your uncle's books were excellent and were seminal. When did those books come out? How many decades ago? 30, 40, 50 years ago?
That's right. The first Naked Communist, then Naked Capitalist, and then, of course, he wrote the great, beautiful volume, The Making of America, a real seminal work. His 5,000-Year Leap has gone to bestseller status because of Glenn Beck recommending it. It's not quite as good, frankly, from my point of view, as The Making of America, but at least it's done its job in terms of getting people to be interested in the Constitution, and I think Glenn's done a great job about that. He certainly boosted the movement. But I think, Alex, what we're dealing with both Sarah-Palin and Glenn Beck, we're dealing with people who are controllable. These are not evil people per se. In fact, Glenn Beck is not. He's a very good person, but he's unstable and he's controllable. Sarah-Palin is, to a certain extent, what I would call corruptible. She's been corrupted by the money that has been offered her, not only for the book deals, but for the private jet, for the handlers. All of this stuff is being paid for. She was just flat on her back financially as governor of Alaska until they offered her this deal that she couldn't refuse. Now, they've learned how to play Sarah Palin very, very smart. They have not told her, all right, we're in control, you're going to take orders from us. But they know how to play her, so to speak, so that they can convince her to do stupid things like endorse John McCain for Senate and other bad endorsements that she's made. Glenn Beck is a more complex character. He comes from an unstable background, alcoholism, drug abuse, some other things that I won't mention. He's come from a rock music background, makes him a little bit unstable. He shoots from the hip. This is a person who can be manipulated to a certain extent. Now, I don't believe he ever got any direct orders from Bush to deny FEMA camps. This was a very interesting case whereby he was actually convinced that, in fact, there were camps. And he even said so on the air on television. He said tomorrow, and then he got turned around. Now, it wasn't the direct turnaround, you see, where somebody came and said to him, all right, you're going to do this and this and this. It was through the use of Meigs and popular mechanics. These were his independent experts. They're anything but independent. They were recommended to him from his Fox sources, who is a controlled news organization, as you said. And it was through them explaining to them that, you don't want to get on the air and explain this. This is going to embarrass you, and here's the real facts. And he did not have, and Glenn Beck continues to refuse to get alternative opinions. I mean,